What's going on, guys? It's your boy Spudzie here, and today I have one low intensity build for each of the Path of Fire specializations. If you've been following me for a while now, you'll know that I actually did one of these for the end of Dragon specs, and it was very well received. Since then, I've been asked to do one for the rest of the specs, so naturally I moved on to Path of Fire. This video will feature builds I have previously covered on my channel, but there have been some that are changed or completely new in order to meet expectations and hopefully please everybody. Please keep in mind that a low intensity build is nowhere near the top DPS, but is simply an easier way to step your foot into the door while still being able to clear most content in the game. If this video helps you, please consider leaving a like and a subscribe, as it helps out a ton. Now let's go ahead and get right into it. The Renegade is a condition build that utilizes 6 pieces of Viper's gear with Nightmare runes, as well as full Viper's accessories. The weapon is a short bow with Viper stats as well, including Superior Sigil of Torment and Superior Sigil of Doom. For our Legend stances, we're going to be taking Kala and Malix with the traits of Corruption, Invocation, and Renegade. We'll be taking Corruption 1-3-1, Invocation 2-3-1, and Renegade 2-2-2. These traits will allow us to pump out as much condy damage as we can to as many targets as we can. For our rotation, go ahead and start off in Malix and pop the elite skill, followed by a short bow 4-3-2. Once you're out of energy, go ahead and swap over to Kala and use Razor Claw's Rage to give yourself more bleed damage, and keep using short bow 2, 3, and 4. Once the cooldown on Malix is back, go ahead and swap back, use the elite skill, rinse and repeat. Our condy damage will take a little bit to ramp up, but it did see a peak of 26k, averaging at around 25k. This build is fairly simple, but if you wanted to take it even a step further, what you could do is right as you're about to switch out of Kala stance back into Malix, go ahead and pop down another spirit, because it will stay whenever you swap, giving you extra damage. The Spellbreaker is a giga power DPS that utilizes 6-piece Berserkers with Scholar's runes and 6-piece Berserker accessories. Weapons are a dagger main hand and an axe in the offhand with Superior Sigil of Force and Superior Sigil of Accuracy. For our skills, we'll be taking 3 signets for their passive bonuses, as well as Bull Charge and the Mending Heal. For our traits, we're going to be running Tactics, Strength, and Spellbreaker. For tactics, you're going to want to run 1-1-1, for strength 3-3-1, and Spellbreaker 1-3-3. These traits allow us to get a ton of passive damage by just attacking and using burst skills. You really don't have to put a lot of thought into this. It's a bunch of passive bonuses, which is really nice. Our Spellbreaker rotation is going to be a simple 3-button. Go ahead and engage with your Mending Heal skill, pop Axe 4 into Axe 5, and go right into the burst skill. From here, just go ahead and auto attack until any of these skills are back up. The priority on these skills should always be Axe 4, Axe 5, and then burst skill. But make sure that before you do any of these skills, do not interrupt your auto attack, because your third hit on the auto attack is your most damaging hit. If you want to take it a step further, you can actually increase your damage by weaving in your heal skill and Bull's Charge in between the auto attacks to try and proc that 10% extra damage on peak performance. This build averaged around 25 to 26k DPS, and Spellbreaker is honestly just tons of fun, super good right now. Go ahead and give it a shot. Firebrand is a conditioned DPS build that runs full Viper's gear with Superior Rune of Balthazar and also full Viper's accessories. Our weapons are a Viper's Axe and a Viper's Torch with Superior Sigil of Fire and Superior Sigil of Bursting. Our skills are the exact same as before. Our Ring of Fire, Mantra of Flame, and the Sigil are all important parts of this build, as they'll help us deal more damage as passively as possible. The traits that we take are mainly the exact same from the old LI build, except for a few changes in the Firebrand trait line. This LI build focuses more on tombs, so you can see that a lot of the traits in our Firebrand trait line will now be centered around that. For a rotation, go ahead and pop the Ring of Fire into the Mantra of Flame to get your charges going. Hop into F1 and use Tomb 4. Right after, go ahead and leave that tomb and start auto attacking and using your other abilities on cooldown. You'll want to use Torch 4 every time that it glows and lights up, and also be using Ring of Fire and Mantra of Flame as soon as they come off cooldown. As soon as it's been around 8 seconds, assuming that you have Alacrity, go ahead and hop back into the tomb and spend those pages on Tomb 4. You'll repeat this over and over, which will net you around 26k DPS, usually averaging at around a high 25k. The Holosmith runs full Berserker's gear with Scholar's runes. Our weapons are a sword with superior sigil of impact and a shield with superior sigil of force. The shield in this set won't actually be used for any DPS gains, but it's just a defensive tool for if you get caught out. Our noteworthy skills are the laser disc and the grenade kit. The laser disc does fantastic passive damage with just a click of the button, while the grenade kit is taken for its massive tool belt skill. The traits are explosives, firearms, and Holosmith. These traits will provide massive DPS increases without us having to spare a thought as to what we're doing, as most of these work with the buttons we're already pressing. For the rotation, we're going to go ahead and start by popping our laser disc, head into the Photon Forge, and use skill 3 and skill 4 on cooldown until we overheat. While we're waiting for these skills to come back up, try to weave in our grenade tool belt skill as well for max damage. Once you overheat, just go ahead and swing your sword auto attacks, and it's that simple. If you understand this and want to take your DPS to the next level, this next rotation is for you. Start again by popping the laser disc, enter Photon Forge, and use skill 3 and 4 while weaving in tool belt 4 as previously mentioned. Once you overheat, immediately pop the elite skill, Prime Light Beam, and spam sword 2 off cooldown in between your auto attack chains. For the gear, we're going to be running full Berserkers with Rune of the Scholar. Our weapon will be a rifle with superior sigil of force and accuracy. With these gear and stat combinations, you'll be looking at some heavy power DPS with practically maxed out crit. For our skills and traits, we took options that allowed us to be as passive as possible. All the skills besides the elite are signets. These signets will grant us some nice passives, while the elite skill will serve as our CC for break bars. For our traits, we take critical strikes, deadly arts, and Deadeye. Almost all, if not most, of these traits all consist of passive bonuses, which makes this build that much easier. When I say passive, I quite literally mean passive. Traits that grant us flat power and precision stats are plentiful within this build. Onto the rotation, if you want to even call it that. You want to start by kneeling. Once kneeled, go ahead and use your F1 ability, this will be our Deadeye's mark. Then from there, just let your auto attacks do the work. You'll be averaging almost 20k DPS with your hands off the keyboard. Just make sure to refresh your Deadeye's mark whenever it's about to fall off. And if you really want an extra 1 to 2k DPS, you can go ahead and spam your 3 ability whenever you have the resources to do so. If you want to do even more auto attack damage, go ahead and trade out that dusty old rifle for a pair of these sick daggers. The dagger auto attacks actually do more damage than the rifle ones, with the only downside being that you're in melee range, but you can move at max speed. So go ahead and pick your poison. Get it? Cause like thieves and their poison. The Soulbeast utilizes full Berserker's gear with Scholar's runes. The weapons are double axes with superior sigil of force and superior sigil of accuracy. Our notable skills will be taking our 1 wolf pack and Sikkim. Our traits are skirmishing, beast mastery, and Soulbeast. These traits will make it so that our axes do big damage, which is even further amped up by our fury uptime and increased damages. Because we're a ranger, we actually have to worry about our pet choice as well. That is why for this build, I have taken the red Moa, as this will give us the benefits that we need with us being a power-based build. This rotation requires you to be flanking. That means that you can stand on the sides of your target or the rear. You'll also want to stay merged with your pet during the entirety of this. Go ahead and start by popping 1 wolf pack and Sikkim into Axe 5. From there, throw your Axe 4 in front of the target and use Axe 2. Keep spamming these skills as they come off cooldown, and that'll be your whole rotation. The Mirage runs a mix of Viper's and Rampager's gear, as well as Rampager's accessories. Our weapons are a Viper's Axe with superior sigil of Torment, and a Viper's Focus with superior sigil of Earth. For our skills, we're going to run all sigils to be as passive as possible, and to just make things a lot easier on ourselves. Our traits are centered around not only passively buffing ourselves, but our illusions as well. Traits that grant our illusions fury, coupled with damage reductions, are all present in this build. Start by creating illusions with Axe 2, and once all the illusions are out, it is a simple 1-button rotation from here. Spam dodges while auto-attacking to buff up your illusions, and watch as you fly up those DPS charts. It's really as simple as that. Just create your illusions and spam auto-attacks. If you wanted to do even more damage, you could actually opt out of Rampager stats and take Vipers instead. I just didn't do it because I am pretty broke. The Scourge runs full Viper's gear with Nightmare runes. Our accessories are Vipers as well, with our weapons being a Viper's Scepter and a Viper's Torch, with superior sigil of Torment and superior sigil of Bursting. For our skills, we take a couple of signets, a minion, and the elite skill, Plague Lance to help out with our DPS just a tiny bit. For our traits, we take the pretty standard condition build that you would see on a Necromancer. All these traits are ranging from extra condies on skills that we already use to passive condition damage bonuses. For our rotation, go ahead and start by using your elite skill. Immediately use your F5 to hop into Shroud and start spamming those auto attacks. By doing this, you will reach around 20k DPS, but if you just want a few thousand more, go ahead and add in Scepter 3 into the mix, as that will give you a couple thousand more damage. At first, your damage might seem pretty low, but over time it will ramp up significantly. Weaver is a power build that runs full Berserker's gear with Runes of the Scholar. It takes the weapon's sword and focus and utilizes Superior Sigil of Force and Superior Sigil of Impact. For our skills, the only real important one is the Primordial Stance, which will offer us a bit more damage at the click of a button, while the Signets will provide their passive bonuses. Our trait lines are Fire, Air, and Weaver, with traits that will provide a ton of bonuses to our weapon, as well as an execute mechanic that allows us to deal 20% more damage if the target is below half HP. This build stays in Fire Attunement the entire time. Go ahead and start by summoning your minion on the elite skill into Sword 2, Sword 3, and Primordial Stance. Want to prioritize Primordial Stance as your first button press, as you have 2 charges of this, and usually if you can get one on cooldown as soon as possible, that's usually a good thing. By doing this rotation, you will average around 22k DPS with a peak at around 23k. Well, there you have it. That is one low intensity build for each of the Path of Fire specializations. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing, as I have a lot more guides and builds that you'd probably also like. Let me know what you think of the builds and if you're finding success with them in all of your instance content. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.